Hi, my name is Grace Patino, and my project is about using diverse language to see the effect on high school students' understanding of quadratics in the mathematics classroom. Statement of the problem. Every year, certain teachers are tasked with the job of providing an adequate education to students that don't understand the English language because they are new to the country. These students are often referred to as EB, Emergent Bilingual Students, or ELLs, English Language Learners. ELLs are estimated to be increasing at a 2.5 times the rate of the general student population. Now many teachers don't speak the language or are unprepared for the struggle of teaching these students. On the other hand, these students find themselves struggling when the majority of them have stated that all they want to do is learn and feel included in the classroom settings. The significance of this study is to aid in the development of more useful resources and materials for emergent bilinguals. This is so that they don't feel left out and have a good understanding of the mathematics happening around them. This all contributes to creating a more equitable learning environment for all students that they are comfortable in. If the current gap between emergent bilingual students and teachers can be bridged, then it will bring a lot more success to all. I chose 3 research questions to help guide my project. The first one being, how does the use of diverse language in speech and visuals for emergent bilingual students impact their understanding and problem solving in quadratic equations? The second one, what linguistic factors create a challenge in understanding mathematical concepts across emergent bilingual students? And the third, how does language diversity influence student attitudes and confidence in comprehending mathematical concepts? I had to do a literature review for this project, and for Article 1, it was called Language Challenges in the Mathematics Education, a Literature Review. The study presented in this article highlights the linguistic challenges in mathematics and the different types of solutions that could help in the classroom. These linguistic problems include vocabulary, reading, and writing. The participants of the study were multilingual students in New Zealand schools. Their specific language being studied there was Chinese Mandarin. They had a limited proficiency with the English language. 2 different tests were administered to these students in the span of 7 weeks. 50% of the students sat through an English version of the test, while the other 50% sat through the Mandarin version. Later, all the students sat through both types of exams. The exam would measure issues surrounding syntax and the issues that surround Chinese Mandarin speaking students. The results of the study revealed that there was a noticeable difference in how students performed on both tests. There was a strong 50% disadvantage from the students on the English version of the test, and it was also noted that teachers weren't aware of these students having a misunderstanding in their classroom. Article 2 was Teachers' Beliefs About English Language Learners in the Mainstream Classroom, a review of the literature. The study presented in the article highlighted the beliefs of teachers when it came to English language learners. The article was divided into 3 sections that are in-service teachers' beliefs, predictors of their beliefs, and the connections between their beliefs and practices. The participants were pre-existing articles that the researcher had found. One such article was a questionnaire that was administered to 5,300 educators of ELL students in California. The intention was to find the challenges, experiences, and professional developments the teachers had experienced. The results of the study revealed that the greatest challenges facing teachers were communication with students and having enough time to teach them while developing their language. Teachers also expressed a lack of resources and constraint in their classroom for helping these students. Article 3 was an analysis of state assessment policies addressing the accommodation of English language learners. The studies presented in the article examined the effects of particular accommodations on performances of English language learners. They looked at anything from customized English dictionaries, use of native language, and providing extra time. The studies were all from the early 2000s area and included 50 states and the District of Columbia. There were 8 studies combined, along with a total of 3,311 English language learners, and the majority were 4th and 6th graders. The results of the study revealed that the dictionaries and glossaries on the test may get rid of test validity because they seem to define key terms. When it comes to effectiveness of native language accommodations that help students, the data was limited, so it was hard to tell if they actually worked. Extra time for ELL students was probably the accommodation that was found to be the most helpful and the most that they could do with such a limited classroom time. Article 4 was scaffolding language for learning in mathematics for English language learners receiving intensive intervention. The study presented in this article highlights the thinking of students during mathematics instruction that then in turn allows teachers to choose tasks to administer that demand high cognitive skills. Different discourse about math interventions is discussed and analyzed. The participants in this article were 5 different English language learners in a second grade classroom. The study would focus on implementing a 5-step process that included drafting discourse, analyzing language, creating think out loud scripts, and designing questions with answer stems and completing a language at a glance communication form. The lessons being taught were double digit addition without regrouping, where all the materials were provided. The results of the study revealed that after a month of using this approach, the students were a lot more responsive because they knew exactly what to say after weeks of following the script. A particular student's response to a question is written, and she is able to use content-specific language correctly and was quick to volunteer. The students also seemed noticeably a lot happier and more comfortable in the class. The fifth and final article was student engagement among high school English language learners with reading comprehension difficulties. The study presented in that article highlights the effects of an intervention that was designed to improve student engagement in school. The intervention did not have too big of an impact, but did conjure up some results. The participants were 358 high school students that were English language learners. The eligible participants were classified into ELLs that in the last 5 years were categorized as ELLs, and they scored below a 1612 on the reading subset their 8th grade year. The results of this study revealed that even though there were no significant effects with the intervention plan they used when it came to engagement, the study still contributed to the research on ELL students and their challenges in the classroom. Also, the use of this type of experimental design with interviews provides more of an understanding of ELL learners, and ELL student engagement needs to be further analyzed to see what is keeping them from being more active in class, and so that the teachers are able to help them more. The location for this study was Channelview High School in Channelview, Texas, that is made up of mostly a Hispanic background population. Over 70% of the school population makes up high-risk students who are in danger of not graduating or meeting all of the graduation requirements by the time of their senior year. I worked there as an Algebra 2 teacher for students in grades 10 through 12. The participants of the study fit that same grade level and are currently in one of my 5 inclusive Algebra 2 classes. The sample size for the study was originally 25 students, but became 24 when one of my students moved away. The criteria that I had to choose from was they were currently classified as an EB student and had to have less than 2 years in the country. All of these students were also Hispanic, but from different countries. I decided to keep my students group by period as I have them now because the data is already grouped by period. The problem with this is that 4th and 5th period have multiple EB students, while another class like 7th period only has 2 EB students in there. That period is also timed at only 45 minutes, where my other classes get an hour and 30 minutes, so that's another disadvantage to them. The research method that I ended up choosing was a mixed methods approach with a focus on quantitative data. I chose to give my students an exam back in October to see how they would do without implementing the diverse language, and tested them again in November after changing my teaching styles. Both of these exams cover quadratics, as that is the topic that we were covering in class, and it's 2 different units that we teach in Algebra 2. The scores were compared in different categories labeled approaches, meets, masters, which are what the Texas exam scores are based on when grading. In addition, I also interviewed students or surveyed them about how they were feeling about their process, and I use this type of research because it adds a personal level to just the number scores, and I believe improvement in the class is more important than passing the class. I observed these students while they worked on assignments and exams and surveyed them in Spanish to get a better look at how they thought their process was going. The results of the first exam were 48% approached, 27% met, and 7% mastered. The results of the last exam were 45% approached, 30% met, and 23% mastered. This means that there was a decrease of 3% of approaches, but an increase of 3% in meets and an increase of 23% in masters. The decrease in percentages for approaches could be due to many factors beyond the implementation of diverse language, but it is difficult to see after working on making the classroom more accessible to EB students. There was an increase in the other two categories, with masters having such a huge increase that I was surprised. The different forms of diversifying language in the classroom included visuals and verbal communication to students. So there could be a problem that there were not enough methods there used to provide a real difference. Another pitfall is that I lost an EB student and gained two new ones throughout this research. In addition, the quantitative data, the survey results reveal that students have not been comfortable in a majority of their classes due to language barriers experienced between them and the teachers. This is something that I had already figured out, but that was interesting that these students wanted to have a chance to speak up in class and show their skills, but were left to the side by teachers that didn't want to embarrass them. These students could see that teachers looked out for them, but it was in a non-productive method. One notable trend highlighted in the survey data is that students like to use their phones in order to understand their teachers with apps like Google Translate or note recording. However, the students mentioned that their teachers will not allow them to use their phones during class, so there's no way for them to get extra help. These school policies make sense as a majority of students only use technology given to them for the wrong purpose, but it would be a helpful tool to use for the students, so there could be exceptions made or extra monitoring to see if these tools are being used correctly. Based on the survey findings, it is evident that from the students' perspectives that they do not believe that the teachers differentiate classroom instructions to get to get them to cater to their needs. Many students seem to point out that their teachers just teach class like they would regularly and hope that their inclusion aid can help these students. A problem with that mentioned is that these aides don't always show up, so they are the only ones looking out for themselves with no resources. Overall, there wasn't a gigantic difference between using diversity in the classroom for the understanding of mathematics. I could see that a lot of students that were in the approach category moved up to masters, but the students that were not at approach before did not move up to the approaching level. I believe that maybe with more time, these students could have shown greater improvement, and this research could also help other teachers who aren't familiar with their EB students, because my EB students mentioned that they feel that way due to their education lacking in other classes because other teachers might not understand them. More research could be added to this, where using more diverse practices are included and where the research is implemented for a longer time, since I was not able to make a big impact with a small amount of time given to me. The following just mentions all the references that I used.